The first time I saw our wedding video play on television, I almost laughed. There we were, Daniel and I, smiling beneath soft fairy lights, our fingers intertwined as the local channel narrator called us the embodiment of trust and love. Back then, I believed every word. Now, every frame feels like a lie I helped produce. Our house in Willow Heights was the kind people stopped to admire. Pale shutters, trimmed hedges, a porch swing Daniel hung himself. On quiet mornings, he'd brew my coffee just the way I liked it, too sweet, and leave a sticky note with a heart drawn in the corner. "You're my favorite reason," he'd write. I kept everyone in a little wooden box by my dresser, but somewhere between those mornings and now, the sweetness curdled. It wasn't loud. It wasn't sudden. It was quiet, so quiet that I didn't even realize it was happening. The small corrections, the casual jokes that felt too sharp. "You look better when you don't overthink," he'd say whenever I disagreed. I started watching my words the way people watch clocks, afraid of running out of time. In the evenings, Daniel would sit by the window reading the newspaper, his face bathed in orange light. "Elena," he'd murmur without looking up, "you shouldn't walk alone after dark." It sounded protective, but something in his tone made it feel more like a rule. The line between love and control blurred long before I noticed it. Friends adored him. My mother once said, "You're lucky, men like Daniel are rare." And I nodded, smiling, because that's what a good wife does. But at night, when he fell asleep beside me, I'd lie awake staring at the ceiling fan, listening to its slow, repetitive hum. Sometimes I imagined it whispering warnings I couldn't quite hear. The first real crack came on our 5th anniversary. He took me to the same restaurant where we'd had our first date. The waiter brought a bottle of wine we'd loved back then, but Daniel frowned. "That's not the right one," he said, his voice calm but cold. When I insisted it was, his hand tightened around my wrist under the table, just enough to make me stop speaking. Later, he apologized with roses and whispered, "You know I'd never hurt you." I wanted to believe him, so I did. Looking back, it wasn't the moments of anger that scared me most. It was how quickly they disappeared, erased by his charm. He'd smile and everything felt normal again, like the darkness had only been my imagination. I still remember the night the local producer called, asking to include our footage in a documentary about perfect marriages. Daniel was thrilled. I said yes before realizing why the idea made me uneasy. Watching that clip again now, with the two of us frozen mid-laugh, I can't help but whisper to the screen, back then, I didn't know love could look so much like control. And as the documentary fades to black, I hear Daniel's voice in my memory, soft, confident, close enough to touch. "No one tells our story better than me." I didn't know he meant it as a warning. I used to think bruises only bloomed on skin, the kind you could cover with sleeves, makeup, or lies. But now I know the worst ones live beneath the surface, where no one can see them, where even you start pretending they're not there. After the documentary aired, Daniel changed in ways too small for anyone else to notice. He stopped kissing me goodbye in the mornings, stopped answering when I called. When I asked why, he'd smile, eyes steady, and say, "You're imagining things again, love. You've been stressed." The words slid through me like silk, gentle, dismissive, final. At first I tried to believe him. Maybe I was tired. Maybe I'd misremembered the dates, the times, the tone of his voice. But then there were the missed anniversaries. Our 8th, then my birthday. When I confronted him, he tilted his head like a teacher correcting a child. "Elena, I took you to dinner last week," he said softly. "You really don't remember?" I froze. He said it with such certainty that I almost apologized. Almost. Later that night, I checked my planner, empty, no dinner. No gift, no memory of joy, just blank spaces that began to swallow me whole. He started leaving his phone around the house, unlocked, as if daring me to look. I didn't, until one night when the screen lit up beside his sleeping body. I saw the name first, unknown, then a voicemail icon. My pulse stuttered. I pressed play, a woman's voice, low, trembling, intimate. "Daniel." "Please call me back." Then silence. My hand shook so violently I almost dropped the phone. I deleted it before he could wake, before I could think. The sound of her whisper replayed in my mind, looping like a song I couldn't escape. The next morning, Daniel made pancakes, humming to himself. "You're quiet," he said. "Didn't sleep well," I muttered. He brushed my cheek with his thumb, tender as always. "Maybe stop watching those crime shows before bed. They mess with your head." It was the kind of comment that sounds like care but feels like a cage. That evening, I bought a leather-bound notebook. On the first page, I wrote, "I need to remember what's real." Each night I filled it, dates, words, moments, doubts. Tiny proof that I wasn't losing my mind. Writing became the only place Daniel couldn't reach me, the only version of myself he couldn't edit. Still, even as my pen moved, a thought kept clawing at me. What if he found this too? So I hid it under the floorboard beneath my vanity, and when I caught my reflection in the mirror, I whispered, "You're not crazy." But the woman staring back didn't believe me. It began with a scent. Faint, floral, and wrong. Daniel came home late that night, his tie loosened, his shirt wrinkled in a way that didn't match a normal workday. When I leaned in to kiss him, I caught it, the perfume. Sweet but sharp, like gardenias mixed with smoke. I froze, but he didn't notice. He just smiled, brushing my hair back. "Long day," he said, his voice smooth as ever. I nodded, pretending nothing had shifted, though inside something fractured. The smell lingered long after he showered, faintly clinging to the collar of his shirt, mocking me from the laundry basket. The next morning,
while folding clothes, I lifted that shirt again.
Breathing in the evidence, my heart hammered. I told myself maybe it was a coworker. Maybe he hugged someone at the office. Maybe. Every maybe hurt more than the last. That evening, I started watching him differently. Not like a wife, but like a detective trapped inside her own marriage. I noted when he left for work, 8:10 a.m. sharp. When he came home, sometimes 6:45, sometimes 9. His stories never matched the clock. He began locking his phone again. When I asked why, he said, "Privacy isn't a crime, Elena. You're becoming obsessive." The word obsessive stuck to me like a stain. Maybe that was the point. He wanted me to question my own eyes, my own instincts. But that perfume was real, and every night when he turned to me in bed, I caught a trace of it, like a ghost between us. One afternoon, I decided to follow him. I told him I had errands, then parked near his office. Hours passed. When he finally came out, he wasn't alone. A woman in a red coat touched his arm lightly before walking away. He stood there a moment, watching her disappear. Then he smiled, softly the way he used to smile at me. I couldn't breathe. I drove home before he could see me, the steering wheel slick in my shaking hands. That night, when he returned, I pretended to be asleep. He lay beside me, his arm heavy over my waist. I could smell her again, stronger now, undeniable. Then in the dark, his breath brushed my ear as he whispered almost tenderly, "You'll never leave me." His embrace tightened just enough to make my ribs ache, and when he finally drifted to sleep, I stayed awake staring at the ceiling, realizing for the first time that I might never be safe again. The morning after, Daniel's whisper still echoed in my head. "You'll never leave me." I knew I couldn't keep pretending everything was normal. My reflection had grown hollow-eyed, my smile a stranger's. That's when I made the appointment, with someone Daniel didn't know existed. Dr. Vivian Cross's office sat on the top floor of an old brick building downtown. The walls were painted a muted blue, the kind of color that tried too hard to calm you. She greeted me with a measured smile, her eyes kind but sharp, as if she'd seen every kind of broken before. "So," she said gently, motioning for me to sit. "Tell me what brings you here, Elena." I hesitated. My hands twisted in my lap. "I think my husband is hurting me," I whispered. "Not physically." "Not yet," she didn't flinch, just nodded. "What makes you say that?" The words tumbled out before I could stop them. I told her about the gaslighting, the perfume, the threats hidden inside tenderness, about how every time I tried to stand up for myself, Daniel made me feel small, crazy even. "I don't trust my own memory anymore," I said, my voice shaking. "He tells me things happened when they didn't, or didn't happen when they did. Sometimes I believe him." Dr. Cross scribbled something on her notepad, her pen moving fast. "You're describing a pattern of coercive control," she said carefully. "You're not losing your mind, Elena. You're being conditioned to doubt it." Her certainty made something inside me break. I started to cry, quietly, the way I've learned to do. When I finally looked up, I noticed her face had changed. Her expression had gone pale, almost wary. "What is it?" I asked. She hesitated. "You said your husband's name is Daniel Moore." I nodded. She set her pen down slowly. "He came to me once, 2 years ago. Said he was struggling with anger, control issues. He stopped showing up after the 3rd session." My throat went dry. "Did he mention me?" Her silence was answer enough. When I left, the sky outside was bruised with storm clouds. I kept thinking about the way her tone had shifted, the tightness in her voice. That night, I couldn't sleep. Rain hammered the windows and every sound felt too loud. I told myself I was imagining things, until my phone buzzed at midnight. A message from Dr. Cross. "We need to talk tomorrow. Urgent," but tomorrow never came. By morning, the news reported a break-in at her office. Nothing stolen, except patient files. And when I checked my messages again, her text was gone. The night after Dr. Cross's office was broken into, I barely slept. The police called it a random incident, but I knew better. My session notes were gone. Every word I'd said about Daniel, every secret I'd confessed, now belonged to someone else. By morning, the house felt different, colder, quieter. Even the walls seemed to listen. The first strange thing happened while I was making coffee. The kitchen lights flickered, humming faintly before dimming to a low, uneasy glow. I checked the switch, nothing wrong. Then upstairs I heard the faint crackle of static. The baby monitor, which hadn't been used in years, had turned on by itself. I froze. Through the small screen, I saw my empty bedroom. Just stillness. The kind that feels staged. When Daniel came home that evening, I tried to sound casual. "Did you reset the Wi-Fi today?" He looked up from his phone. "No, why?" "Just the lights." And the monitor came on. He smiled, that too calm smile that always made me feel foolish. "You're spiraling again, Elena. Maybe you should stop talking to strangers about us." My stomach dropped. He knows. That night I waited until he was asleep before getting out of bed. The monitor's red light blinked again, steady and watching. I unplugged it, but the blinking continued for a second after. The longest second of my life. I started searching. Drawers, outlets, corners. Every hum of electricity made my skin crawl. Then I reached the bedroom mirror, our anniversary gift, heavy and ornate. When I leaned close, I saw something glint behind the frame. My pulse thundered. I lifted it from the wall, my hands trembling. There it was. A tiny black lens. For a moment, I couldn't move. My reflection stared back, eyes wide, mouth open. A woman I barely recognized. The realization hit like ice water. He'd been watching me. Every breakdown. Every tear. Every secret moment I thought was mine. I wanted to scream, but instead I laughed. Quietly, bitterly. Because suddenly I understood. He wanted me scared. He wanted me small. I set the mirror down gently, like placing a body to rest, and whispered to my reflection, "If he wants a show, I'll give him one." That night, I left the mirror exactly where it was, camera still hidden, red light still blinking faintly behind the glass, and as I lay beside Daniel, pretending to sleep, I began to plan my next move, one he wouldn't see coming. After discovering the hidden camera, I stopped pretending to be afraid. Fear had already done its job. It had hollowed me out, made space for something colder to take root. For days, I moved like a ghost through the house, smiling when Daniel spoke, nodding when he asked questions. Inside, I was counting breaths, minutes, and lies. Every night he left his phone on the nightstand, face down, glowing faintly. And every night I watched him, memorizing the rhythm of his sleep. I needed proof, something beyond my word, beyond my sanity. So I bought a small recorder, black thin, easy to hide. I told the cashier it was for dictation practice. She smiled. I didn't. That night, I slipped it beneath the sofa cushion in the living room, where Daniel liked to take his late calls. He thought I was asleep upstairs. I waited, holding my breath, listening through the floorboards as his voice drifted faintly upward. At first, I caught fragments, business, money, something about cleaning up a mess. Then his tone changed. Darker. It had to be done, he said quietly. You don't understand, she was digging too deep. And if she keeps asking, she's next. The words froze me in place. She's next. He paused as if listening. Then, no, she doesn't suspect a thing. She thinks I still love her. The air left my lungs. My hand covered my mouth to keep from making a sound. I could hear him laugh softly, a sound I'd once loved. Now it sounded like a knife scraping glass. When he finally hung up, I stayed still until I heard the creak of stairs, his footsteps moving toward the bedroom. I closed my eyes, forced my breathing to slow, pretending to sleep as he slid into bed beside me. His arm draped over my waist, the same arm that held the phone minutes ago. I didn't sleep at all. When his breathing evened out, I slipped from bed, retrieved the recorder, and replayed the audio. His voice filled the room, steady, unflinching. Deming. I sat there in the dark, listening again and again, until the words lost meaning and became pure sound. Proof. Finally. Proof. But even as I clutched the recorder, something shifted. Fear didn't leave, it simply evolved. Sharpened. If Daniel had killed before, then he wouldn't hesitate again. Which meant if I wanted to survive, I couldn't keep hiding. I had to become what he never expected. Calculating, silent, dangerous, staring at the recorder. I whispered, maybe this is the only proof the world will believe. And somewhere in the house, the red light behind the mirror blinked once as if it agreed. I planned the dinner like a ritual. The tablecloth ironed flat, candles burning low, soft music humming beneath the silence. It looked almost romantic, if you ignored the small vial of powder hidden in my pocket. Daniel came home later than usual, his tie loosened, his eyes alert in that way that meant he was already suspicious. "What's all this?" he asked, setting his keys down. "Just dinner," I said, smiling too brightly. "We haven't had one together in a while." He glanced at the candles, then at me. "You look nervous, do I?" I kept my tone light even as my hands trembled. "Maybe I just missed you." He sat down slowly, watching me pour the wine. I'd researched for days, just enough poison to make him sick, to scare him, to buy me time. "Nothing fatal. Not yet." As the glasses filled, he leaned back, voice calm but cutting. "You've been acting strange, Elena. Writing in that little journal again. Or is this about your imaginary therapist friend?" I froze. "Imaginary?" He smiled. "Dr. Vivian Cross, wasn't it? Terrible thing what happened to her. Someone broke into her office. You didn't think I wouldn't find out, did you?" My stomach twisted. "What are you talking about?" He leaned forward, elbows on the table, the candlelight flickering across his face. "You're not as clever as you think. You've been recording me, snooping, making up stories. You always did like playing the victim." "Playing?" My voice cracked. "You threatened me, Daniel." "I heard you," he chuckled softly, swirling his wine. "You heard what I wanted you to hear." The silence between us stretched tight, like a string ready to snap. I watched his reflection in the glass, his every movement magnified and distorted. Then slowly I lifted my glass. "To honesty," I said. He raised his too. "To us." We drank. The wine burned down my throat, bitter, metallic. I couldn't tell if my shaking came from guilt or fear. Daniel's eyes stayed on me the whole time, unblinking. He set his glass down, still half full, and smiled. "You hesitated," he murmured. "Whatever you put in there, it wasn't enough." My blood went cold. He reached across the table, touching my hand gently. "Don't look so scared. I told you, Elena, you'll never leave me." The candles flickered, throwing his shadow across my face like a warning. One of us was lying. One of us was waiting. And as the night stretched on, both glasses remained half empty. Only one of us smiled. When I woke, the light slanted cruelly through the kitchen blinds. My head throbbed. My mouth was dry, my dress stuck to my skin. For a moment I couldn't remember where I was. Then I saw the table, the overturned chair, the wine stains, and the shattered glass glinting like scattered diamonds across the floor. Daniel's chair was empty. His phone lay broken near the counter, the screen spidered. And then I saw it, a dark smear trailing toward the hallway. Blood. I pushed myself up slowly, the world tilting with each breath. My last memory flickered. Daniel's smile, the toast, the burn of wine on my tongue. Then nothing. Blackout, a void. "Daniel?" My voice cracked in the silence. "Daniel, answer me." Nothing. Only the faint hum of the refrigerator, steady and indifferent. I stumbled to the sink and rinsed my hands, though I didn't remember why they were sticky. The water ran pink, that's when panic hit. I grabbed the landline, my hands shaking so badly I almost dropped it, and dialed 911. "Hello?" My voice came out weak, unfamiliar. I think something happened to my husband. The dispatcher's tone was calm, practiced. Ma'am, can you tell me what happened? I don't know, I whispered. There's blood. He's gone. Within minutes, sirens broke the stillness outside. Flashing lights bled through the curtains. 2 officers entered first, then a detective. Tall, composed, eyes sharp enough to cut through me. Mrs. Moore, he asked. Detective Aaron Holt. We'll need you to sit down. They photographed everything, the wine glasses, the overturned chair, my trembling hands. I watched numb as strangers walked through what used to be my life. Did you and your husband argue last night? Holt asked. I hesitated. We talked. About what? About trust. He raised an eyebrow. You said you found blood, yet there's no body. How do you explain that? I don't know, I said too quickly. The words hung in the air like smoke. He studied me for a long time, then glanced at the recorder I'd hidden on the counter, the one still faintly blinking red. What's this? I swallowed hard. Proof. He pressed a button. The static-filled recording began to play, Daniel's voice echoing faintly through the kitchen. She's next if she keeps asking. When it ended, Holt looked at me, not with pity, but with doubt. Mrs. Moore, he said quietly, who exactly were you trying to protect? And for the first time I realized I didn't know the answer. Detective Aaron Holt had seen enough marriages crack under secrets to know when something didn't add up. But this one, Elena Moore's trembling voice, the blood trail that led nowhere, the broken phone, felt different. Too staged, too careful. Like a story rehearsed one too many times. I sat across from him in the dim interview room, fingers curled around a lukewarm paper cup. He asked soft questions in a steady rhythm, the kind meant to lull you into truth. When was the last time you saw your husband, Mrs. Moore? Last night, dinner, we drank wine. He nodded, jotting something down. And after that? I don't remember, I whispered. I think I fainted. People don't usually faint and clean up glass, he said, eyes flicking toward the photos on his folder. My breath hitched. I didn't clean. I just woke up that way. Outside the room, his narration, steady, cynical, played like an echo through my mind. She's frightened but not broken. There's control beneath the cracks. Maybe fear can be rehearsed. Later, he walked through our house again, this time alone. Every frame on the wall told a story. Smiles fixed, poses perfect. He paused at the mirror in our bedroom, the one I'd found the hidden camera behind. His reflection looked back, curious, uncertain. If he really watched her, he thought, what else did he record? He found the remnants of a small sticker behind the mirror's edge. Manufacturing code, professional-grade lens. Someone had planted it, but the footage was gone. Back at the station, Holt reviewed the neighbors' statements. Arguing, one had said. No screams, said another. Sounded like a TV, added the third, no forced entry. No body. No timeline that made sense. Then, in the pile of financial reports, something caught his eye. A policy filed 2 months prior. Daniel Moore, the insured. Beneficiary, Elena Moore. Amount $750,000. Holt leaned back in his chair. So either she's the unluckiest woman alive? He paused, eyes narrowing. Or she's playing me. When he returned to question me again, his tone had shifted. The warmth was gone. Only calculation remained. Did you know about the life insurance, Mrs. Moore? I stared at him, feeling the walls close in. No, I whispered. He smiled faintly. You should have read the fine print. The tape recorder on his desk clicked off. The silence between us heavier than any accusation. That night, as I lay awake in the holding cell, I could almost hear Daniel's voice again. Low, familiar, and far too close. You'll never leave me. The room was cold, the hum of the evidence server filling the silence, as Detective Holt watched the recovered footage play on a small monitor. Frame by frame, pixel by pixel, the Moore's perfect home unfolded like a stage, its warmth a lie under sterile police lighting. He adjusted the playback speed. There was Elena, moving slowly through the kitchen, her white nightgown stained faintly at the hem. Her lips moved, forming words too soft for the audio to catch. Then Daniel entered the frame. Expression unreadable, shoulders tight. They were standing too close. The argument wasn't loud, but the tension pulsed through every flicker of movement. Holt leaned in as Daniel pointed toward the table, the 2 wine glasses still half full. "Zoom," he ordered the tech beside him. A muffled voice crackled through the speaker. "You think I don't know what you've done?" Daniel's tone was low, dangerous. Elena's reply was sharp, trembling. "You don't get to talk about truth anymore." A blur of motion. Daniel stepping forward. Elena backing into the counter, the wine bottle tipping, spilling crimson across the marble like blood rehearsing its role. Then a flash of struggle, her hand reaching for something metallic, a shadow striking down, and static. The feed broke. Holt sat back, jaw tense. "Where's the rest?" "The file's corrupted," the tech muttered. "Deleted twice, someone knew what they were doing." But Holt's eyes stayed fixed on the frozen image. Elena standing over something, or someone, her shoulders shaking. He replayed the final frame again and again, until the grain sharpened just enough to show her bending down, grabbing the edge of a white sheet. In the next recovered snippet, only seconds long, she was dragging that sheet toward the basement door. A chill spread through him. Maybe she's covering a body. Maybe she's covering a story. He stood, rubbing his temple, haunted by her voice from their last interview. "I don't remember. Memory or manipulation. It was getting impossible to tell." He stared at the flickering monitor one last time before switching it off. The reflection that stared back wasn't just his. It was theirs, overlapping, as if the house itself had soaked in their lies. Walking out of the evidence room, he murmured to himself, voice rough, almost reluctant. Sometimes the victim tells the best lie. Outside, the rain began to fall, soft at first, then heavy, washing over the street where Daniel Moore had last been seen alive. And somewhere in the distance, a basement light flickered on. The garden lights cast pale halos across the wet soil as rain mingled with the scent of earth and rot. Detective Holt stood beneath his umbrella, watching forensic teams move with grim precision. Shovels struck mud, steady and rhythmic like a pulse beneath the storm. Elena sat on the back steps, wrapped in a police blanket, her eyes vacant. The yard that once bloomed with her roses now looked like a graveyard. When the tarp-covered shape emerged from the ground, her breath came in ragged sobs. "Bag it carefully," Holt ordered, his voice hollow. The tarp unfurled, and even the seasoned officers froze. A woman's body decomposed beyond recognition, hair matted with soil. Around her wrist, a faint gold bracelet still clung to bone. Later, under harsh fluorescent lights, the DNA results came in. Holt's expression didn't change, but his pulse spiked. "It's not Daniel Moore," the lab tech said.
"Then who the hell is it?"
The answer came quietly. "Vivian Cross." The room fell silent. Elena's scream broke through the stillness like glass. No, she helped me. She helped me!" In interrogation, she trembled, clutching her arms as though holding herself together. Holt watched her closely, searching for deceit, but all he saw was ruin. "She was alive when I left her office," Elena whispered. "He knew about her. He must have—" She choked on the words. "Daniel knew everything." Holt's tone softened. "Mrs. Moore, do you remember anything from that night?" She blinked hard, shaking her head. "I just remember." "Digging," he leaned forward. "Digging what?" Her voice cracked. "Dreams. I thought it was a dream. The sound of dirt, the smell of rain. I thought I was burying the truth." Her words hung in the air, half confession, half delusion. Holt played a short clip from the recovered footage again. Elena dragging the sheet toward the basement. The lab report suggested the body had been buried days before Daniel's disappearance. The timeline no longer fit. Nothing did. As Elena's sobs quieted, she whispered, "Maybe he wanted me to find her. To remember." Holt turned off the recorder. The fluorescent light buzzed above them like static. Harsh, unrelenting. Outside, the digging had stopped. But the storm hadn't. Holt stared through the glass at Elena, slumped in the chair, eyes lost somewhere between grief and madness. Under his breath, he muttered, "If she didn't kill Daniel." Maybe Daniel never died. Months later, the world finally knew the name Elena Moore. The true crime documentary, Marriage into Murder, premiered on a stormy Thursday night. Its opening credits cutting through living rooms across the country like a scalpel. Grainy footage, a voiceover of Detective Holt, the flicker of wedding vows. Then, The shot of Elena's trembling hands as she was led away in handcuffs. Holt's voice carried the weight of weary truth. Love, when twisted enough, can justify anything, even murder. I watched it alone from a cheap motel room 2 states away. The glow from the TV danced across the walls, casting long shadows that looked almost human. They'd blurred my face for privacy, but the silhouette was unmistakable. My story, our story, rewritten by strangers. The documentary showed everything. The perfect wedding, the hidden cameras, the garden excavation. The reenactments were cinematic, almost cruel in their beauty. An actress played me softer, more fragile, as if guilt alone made me human. Daniel's actor was charming, magnetic, the kind of man everyone forgave. Then came Holt's interview segment. His tone was steady but uncertain. Evidence suggested manipulation on both sides. What we never confirmed, he paused, was who orchestrated the final act. A montage followed. Police digging under the moonlight. The therapist's bracelet glinting in dirt. And the voice recorder, still replaying the fragmented confession. It had to be done. She's next if she keeps asking. The audience didn't know who she was anymore. Maybe me, maybe Vivian, maybe love itself. As I watched, my breath came in shallow waves. Each frame felt like a haunting, edited truth cutting deeper than the real one ever had. The camera lingered on my face from the old footage, smiling at our anniversary dinner, Daniel's arm around me. The narrator said softly, "They called themselves the perfect couple, but perfection has a price." The final segment faded into a montage of Willow Heights now. The empty house, the overgrown roses, the flickering garden lights. Holt's narration lowered, almost like a prayer. Maybe some stories don't end with justice. Maybe they end where love refuses to die. The credits began to roll, the haunting piano theme echoing. I reached for the remote, ready to shut it off, until the screen shifted again. A post-credits scene, a cafe in another city. The camera followed a man reading a newspaper, clean-shaven, different hair. But the eyes, the unmistakable calm behind them, froze my pulse. Daniel. He looked up as the TV behind the counter played the documentary's final minutes. My face appeared on screen, crying under interrogation. He smiled, softly, knowingly, and sipped his coffee. The barista asked, "Hey, isn't that you?" He chuckled. People say that a lot. Then he folded the newspaper, dropped a tip, and walked out into the sun. The camera lingered on the paper left behind. An obituary headline reading, "The Moore case, still no trace of Daniel." Detective Holt's final line echoed one last time. Just before the screen faded to black, "Some ghosts aren't dead. They're just waiting to be found."